Way down upon the Swanee River, far, far away. That's where my heart is turning ever. That's where the old folks stay. All up and down the whole creation, everywhere I roam, I'm dreaming of the old plantation and for the old folks at home. Lord knows that's one of my favorite songs. You see, it reminds me of my hometown, White Springs, Florida. And that's where the writer, way down upon the Swanee River, Stephen Foster, was born. When and if I tell the truth, we didn't really live in White Springs, but we did live in Hamilton County. And that was the nearest town. You see, we lived out in the country. It also reminds me of my mama, my daddy. Hard times they went through. You see, they were both born slaves. Oh, please excuse my manners. My mama raised me better than that. My name is Charlie King. Now, I understand you all come here, find out about the early days of Fort Lauderdale. Where you come to the right place, because I was there. That's right. Now, see, where was I? Oh, yeah, I was telling you about my family. Well, I was born in 1876, the sixth of 10 children. But by that time, my mom and my daddy were free and they were sharecropping. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. What in the world is sharecropping? Sharecropping is when you make an agreement with a landowner to use his land to farm on. Then in return, you give him an agreed-to share of your crops. For instance, if it's a 50-50 split, when your crops come in, you give the landowner 50% and you keep the other 50. Well, it just seems that my poor mom and daddy just never could get ahead under that system. You see, I came here to Fort Lauderdale in 1902 at the age of 26 to build bridges and lay tracks for the Flagler Railroad. Oh, the work was hard, but the pay was good. You see, they was paying $1.50 a day. And in them times, that was a whole lot of money. I thought, surely, hey, I had found the promised land. You see, we used to sing while we worked. Seemed to make the day go faster and the work easier. Songs like, Go on, old gator, doggone your soul. Go on, old gator, you gotta make it to your muddy hole. God made the gator, God made the whale. God made that gator with knots all over his tail. Go on, old gator, doggone your soul. Go on, old gator, you gotta make it to your muddy hole. God made the gator, God made the fly. God made that gator with spots all over his eyes. Go on, old gator, doggone your soul. Go on, old gator, you gotta make it to your muddy hole. Ain't got no money, ain't got no shoes, ain't got no woman to ease my weary blues. Go on, old gator, doggone your soul. Go on, old gator, you gotta make it to your muddy hole. When you get a section, make me a star. When you have a daughter, make me your son-in-law. Go on, old gator, a doggone your soul. Go on, oh Gator, you gotta make it to your muddy. Ho, ho, ho. Yeah, songs like that we used to sing while we worked. Yes, sir. Well, when I first came here in 1902, there were only about 24 colored folks and no more than 100 whites. But when I brought my wife and 12 children here, our numbers increased overnight. Me and my missus wasn't finished. We had one more son, Donald. That made it 13. Well, I built my own house with my own two hands at 545 Northwest 15th Avenue. Well, now when the railroad was complete, I went back to what I knew best, farming. You see, back then in them days, they had what you call homesteaders' rights, and that meant if you found a piece of vacant land and you set up a farm on it, you could stake a claim to it. Well, my farm started at Northwest 27th Avenue. That's right there behind the African American Research Library and the Urban League building. Y'all know where that is? And it went all the way west past the Northwest 31st Avenue and included the land where the swap shop parking lot is today. And it started at Sistrunk Boulevard and went all the way north to Sunrise Boulevard. All of that was my farm. Oh, I raised all sorts of vegetables. That thing don't want to stay. All sorts of vegetables. I'll just take it and put it in his front pocket. I'll take it home with me. I never had one of these. Okay. All sorts of vegetables, and I had animals. I had cows, of course, for milk and butter. I had hogs. You got to have some bacon and pork for the greens. Now, all the vegetables we didn't sell in the neighborhood, I sold at the market. Now, we raised everything. I even grew sugar cane to make my own cane syrup. The only thing we had to buy at the market was flour and spices. You see, Florida's not the right environment to grow wheat for flour. Well, my wife, my beautiful wife, Yulie Murray, and she came from up there in Alachua County, and she was a teacher. Now, in fact, she came from a whole family full of teachers. And there is a Murray Middle School up there in Stuart, Florida, named after them. Oh, yeah. Now, I didn't know how to read and write, but my wife taught me. All of my children, all 13, graduated high school, and some went on to college. And they all worked on the farm, all 8 boys and 5 girls. And I was a disciplinarian. You see, I'm a Christian man, and I believe that the Bible sure enough is right when it says, spare the rod and spoil the child. Now, each one of them knew I'd grab the offender's head and put him between my legs and serve them a heavy dose of my leather strap. Now, I remember once my nephew Ralphie was visiting from Key West. His mama was from the Bahamas, and she didn't believe in much disciplining, but he had the nerve to cuss in my presence. I had to teach him that you always respect your elders. So I grabbed his head and put it between my legs. Do you know that rascal had the nerve to bite me on my thigh? The mark is still there to this day. He said to me, "Mom, you can't do that to me. I'm going to tell me daddy." Do you know that Ralphie never came to visit us again until he was a full-grown man? I guess he learned something. Yes, I never will forget that great hurricane of 1928. You see, it was called Black Sunday. September 26th, a storm carrying 150-mile-per-hour winds hit the coast of South Florida. It had already killed 1,500 people in the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Bahamas. Well, I remember it destroyed Mount Olive's Baptist Church, second building. They had just built it the year before, and the storm just blew it all to pieces. Well, in Boca Raton, it blew train cars off the tracks. 1/3 of the buildings were destroyed. And in West Palm Beach, sailboats were thrown off their moorings, and the buildings were splintered, and the streets were filled with debris. Oh, but that mighty storm left its greatest destruction as it moved west to the Lake Okeechobee area. 6,000 people lived and worked there, and between 2,500 and 3,000 peoples were killed, including my two boys, Arthur and Sidney, who were fishing on the lake when a 25-foot tidal wave broke the dike and all those peoples drowned. Oh, whole army full of volunteers tried to find the bodies. They even built coffins to bury them in. But by the 5th day, the bodies were getting too far along, and the health department told them to burn the bodies. Now, 674 unidentifiable colored bodies were dumped into a 20-foot hole in the West Palm Beach Paupers Cemetery. Yes, sir. I never will forget that. The rest of the bodies were left because they were swallowed up by the Everglades muck or left to the elements when the government called off the search for lack of funds. Yes, sir. A man ain't supposed to outlive his boys. Well, now when I first come here, colored and whites lived wherever they pleased. Wasn't like the rest of the South, where coloreds had their section and white folks had theirs. Oh, that wasn't true here in Fort Lauderdale. There were colored folks living as far east as where Federal Highway is today, till the building boom of the 1920s and the price of land began to soar. And the white builders decided it was bad business for the races to mingle. Yes, sir. By 1911, population had grown to 750. They had a Christmas Day fish fry on the beach to celebrate, and everybody was invited. Well, the separation was completed in 1927 when the city planner came up with the quadrant system. Now, Broward Boulevard divided the north from the south, and Andrews Avenue divided the east from the west. It was decided that all colored folks were to live in the northwest quadrant. Oh, but that didn't bother me none, because I had picked out the right spot when I came here. Oh, yes, and after that, white restaurants would only serve colored customers from the back door. The cemeteries, water fountains, and the restrooms are all separated. They even had to get permission from some white person in order to cross the railroad tracks at night. And then they decided we could no longer use the beaches. You see, colored folks had enjoyed Fort Lauderdale beaches up until then. They had come from as far as West Palm Beach in Miami. So they gave us a colored beach strewn with rocks and weeds down there where God Ocean Mile is today. Y'all know where that's down there at the end of Oakland Park Boulevard. For years, until that was developed, that was the colored beach. The only good thing about the separation is that it made it better for the colored businesses. See, we had our own grocery stores, shoe shops, So all of that kind of stuff, dry cleaners. And it made it better for those businesses. I never will forget, in 1934, Wilbur Porter Sr. came here with his family from Georgia. He worked for me for a while, and I gave him a horse and several acres of land. Before long, Porter was on his feet. He had 800 laying hens, and he was selling eggs all over town. Well, when he delivered his eggs, he started picking up garbage. Soon Porter had 5 trucks and 6 employees, and a list of 1,300 customers. Do you know, in 1962, Porter sold one of his trucks and a list of 20 of his customers to Mr. Wayne Huizenga for $5,000. Huizenga turned that truck into a garbage empire. He became the largest garbage handler in the world and a billionaire. Ain't that something? Now, who would have thunk it? Yes. How am I doing for time, Tara? Can I keep going? Oh, you gonna cut me off? Okay, all righty then. I bought me some pictures. Miss, would you hand me that envelope right there? Ain't she pretty? Thank you, baby. I brought some other pictures of friends of mine that I thought you should know about. Oh, yes. Well, now this first one was my cousin. Her name was Sylvia Aldridge. Now, Sylvia came to Fort Lauderdale in 1904. And she was known because she had the first colored baby here in Fort Lauderdale. Her other claim to fame is that she started an employment agency. You see, in those days, colored women were working in the fields on the farms. And Sylvia didn't want colored women working in those fields, so she started an employment agency to connect them with white families who needed their homes cleaned. So she started that employment agency for colored maids. Back then in them days, they didn't have any public transportation. So guess what? Sylvia also started Sylvia's taxi cab to get the women to their jobs and bring them home. Well, she was also a very an entrepreneur in the community. She and her husband owned houses that they rented. She also always kept on her stove a pot of soup. So no one in the colored community had to ever go hungry. They could always go by Sylvia's house and get some soup. She was also a trustee for Bethune-Cookman College and made a hefty donation to them each and every year. That's my cousin, Sylvia Aldrich. Now, another person you all should know about is Mr. John Hill. John Hill was the first black millionaire here in Fort Lauderdale. Yes, sir. He came from Smithville, Georgia. He only went to the 3rd grade because his father made him work on the farm. So when he became old enough, John Hill ran away from his father's farm, followed the railroad track until he came to a railroad crew, and they hired him as a dishwasher. John made extra money by washing and ironing the railroad crew's uniforms. Then when the cook died, John took that job as cook for the railroad crew. He saved every nickel, every dime, every quarter he could. And then he came to Deerfield Beach and built a grocery store. That's right. He was a hard-working, money-making man. He said he could take $1 and turn it into 500 in no time. Well, when that grocery store in Deerfield burned down while John was on vacation, he came right here to Fort Lauderdale and he opened up a grocery store in 1935. Right over there off of Sistrunk Boulevard. Then he met his second wife, who he married. He also, in 1945, built the first black first-class hotel with 36 rooms. He also owned a nightclub, and it's where all the big-name stars came to entertain here in South Florida. People like Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and they stayed at his hotel and entertained at his club and at clubs on the White Beach. That's John Hill. Now, John claimed that he could have been president of the United States if his father had only let him get an education. That was a hard-working man. Now, this is Dr. James Sistrunk, the first colored doctor to permanently stay right here in Fort Lauderdale. He came in 1924 after finishing Meharry Medical College. Now, his claim to fame was that he claimed that he could recognize any of the 3,000 babies that he delivered when he saw them even as an adult. He could look at them and say, "That's one of mine." That's right. He could recognize them cheering after they had become adults. Later, this next young man, Dr. Von D. Mizell, also came to Fort Lauderdale in 1934 and set up an office with Dr. Sistrunk. And they built the first black hospital here in Fort Lauderdale in 1939. Providence Hospital on Sistrunk Boulevard stayed there until the hospitals were integrated in the 60s. So these two men took care of our community. Well, I'm going to end it right there, Tara.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for listening to my story. It's been a pleasure.